Hello, welcome to Accelerating Virtual Desktop, VDI Server Performance with Flash, the storage solutions that data centers can trust. Today we'll be talking about the rise of the virtual machine, server virtualization and its challenges and how that relates to desktop virtualization, virtualization challenges, or as I like to say, what happened? Flash to the rescue, accelerating VDI Flash in action, and then finally LSI Nitro solutions to solve those challenges, and then of course a summary. The rise of virtualization. In 2012, over 27% of all x86 server chips were virtualized at initial deployment. That means when they went out the door and how they were utilized at the customer site. On average, those had 6 virtual machines for each server. If you look at how that growth rate is in 2017 they're projecting it's going to be 37.2% of all servers will be virtualized with 12 VMs on average. That's saying by 2017 over 80% of the servers will be virtualized. And then for the desktop, VMware estimates that desktop deployments are growing at about 20% a year. Desktop virtualization. Strong benefits are leading to the increase in deployment of virtual desktops. Simplified lifecycle management. You're controlling all aspects of the server virtually. You can create any set of hardware, OS, or application that you want, and they'll be independent of other systems in the environment. Business continuity. When you have servers that fail physically, you can move that workload over to another virtual server on another machine very easily. And because of the fact it is virtualized, you control access to everything from USB to other ports and printing so that you have higher security. That leads to better compliance and the ability to flexibly access it from any device because it's the workload is hosted on a remote server. You can get to it from your pads, your tablets, your phone, or even another desktop computer. Any place, anytime, 24/7. And because you can balance out and add and detract virtual machines from the physical servers, you can basically improve your utilization of your IT resources. Which increases the quality of service and of course leads to cost savings. As you can see here in the top there, you have a number of desktop servers that are all now being hosted by one single server, but to the user the experience is just like they had it running on their local system. But of course, with all benefits there are challenges. Some of the challenges involve cost, performance, and utilization. When you have a lot of servers, or in this case a lot of VDI sessions, virtual desktops, all on one server, when you try to boot them up initially, you can get what they call a boot storm, where you have an extended time to actually get those things up and running. And then when everybody comes in on 8 o'clock on Monday morning or after lunch, you can have a login storm where there's a delay in the time it takes for that person to be able to log into that system that had already been booted. And then of course, as part of the cost savings, you always want to see how you can add more sessions, more VDI instances to a server to increase the density, because it's by the density that and the reduced cost per instance, you get your total cost of ownership reduction and your better return on investment. And then of course, at some point, if you put too many servers on VDI sessions on a server, you're going to get performance hits where the users are going to start to complain because things aren't running like they used to, and that's going to generate IT calls, disgruntled users, and poor performance metrics. The VDI challenges we talked about equal basically a growing need for Flash. You have the blender effect that are caused in there. When you have a whole bunch of workloads that are virtual all on the same physical system, you have this blender effect of all this data, especially to storage. It produces a lot of small, random, write-intensive bursts of I/O during peak workloads. And if you're not adequately able to address that with fast storage, you can slow things down. And so Flash-based caching can help accelerate profile updates, application launches, etc. The perfect storm. We talked about this earlier, but this is when everybody tries to do the same thing at once. Think about when everybody tries to, buy those tickets online or hit the online web portal, Amazon or whatever, Black Friday, and normally that system works fine, but at the time of that, it brings it to its knees. Well, the same thing can happen in a virtual environment when you have boot storms and login storms. But by utilizing flash storage, you can reduce these latencies by storing boot images in fast flash, so that that part of the workload, the one that is going to be slowed down by the simultaneously accessed by all these people, can be improved dramatically and cost effectively. And then economics. VDI is about security, but it's also about return on investment, reducing the total cost of ownership, and improving the return on investment. And so having that be compelling versus doing the old deployment where each one has on a physical server or a physical desktop is critical. And flash storage, as you'll see coming up, can really help improve both the density of virtual machines and also VDI. So to better show you the benefits of flash in a virtualized environment, I want to present to you a number of case studies that we did with partners and by ourselves, utilizing benchmarking tools like the Login VSI tool, which is a tool that helps generate workloads of VDI sessions in this case, where you can dictate how many desktops you're supporting, what type of workload they are, and time things like boot up and login time and response time. In this first case, LSI partnered with VMware to do some testing with their Horizon View deployments to see how Flash, in this case the Nitro Warp Drive application acceleration card, can help improve performance in a virtualized desktop environment. The testing goal was to achieve concurrent support for 200 active virtual desktops on a 2-node cluster and experience no storage latency. This collaborative testing was to show the breakthrough performance and scalability offered by the VMware Horizon View tool itself, along with Nitro Warp Drive. The solution used Nitro Warp Drive cards and Horizon View 5.2 to provide customers with assurances that their VDI requirements would be met in the way of response time, the density, and the number of users. And we used the Login VSI tool 4.02 and View Planner 3.0 benchmarks. The key measurements were first the deployment aspect. Deployment is the time required to create a given number of desktops. That would be on the server itself, where you want to go and create these desktops. Think of it as maybe a training center, and every Monday you have to come in for the new training class and create these desktops with a certain number of OSs, applications, user IDs and stuff, so people can log in and run stuff, or maybe a customer service application. The boot time basically is, now that you're going to boot all these virtual desktops up and make them ready for the customers, or in this case the users, to use, how long it's going to take to simultaneously boot all these. And then the response time, meaning that when the users log in and then start to use this and start using applications, how long is that response time? In this first test, VMware wanted to utilize the Login VSI testing to see how many VDI sessions that this server cluster could support before the latency exceeded the threshold that they were looking at. They were able to actually do 200 desktop instances on this server pair before, actually, not that the latency got too fast, but that the CPU ran out of bandwidth. So in this case, we probably could have gone much higher, but we just didn't have enough CPU cycles to do it. The other test they wanted to do was to see that the time to accelerate and deploy and recompose link clones. When you look at deploying the clones, think about the fact that you have 200 new desktops. Like I said earlier in the discussion, having a new customer service training class coming in, and you had to get 200 of these people on their desktops up and ready. Or think of, for the recomposing, Patch Tuesday. All of a sudden you had the desktops already created, but the version of OS you're viewing, let's say from Microsoft, had a critical bug that needed to be fixed, and there was a patch that came out, and you had to basically deploy that patch and then update all those desktops. In this case, you're looking at, versus the hard drive only solution, utilizing the PCI Flash, you were able to do it 4 times faster, both from the deployment and the recomposing. They also wanted to test to see, okay, now that I can do this on 2, what if I had more nodes? How far could I go up, and how fast could I go, and how many basically desktops could I support? And in this case, with this average 75% average CPU load during burst times, they were able to support 150 desktops per node. And then looking at the whole system of 8 nodes, they were able to do 1,000 concurrent desktops at a fraction of the cost compared to a traditional SAN solution. In this case, they were able to save about $80,000 over a comparable SAN storage solution. So in this configuration, again, the CPU reached its limit before the warp drive reached its full potential. And just some additional benefits to show in the sense of read latency and write latency. The two green and blue lines were utilizing the Nitro warp drive, PCIe flash, and then the red and orange lines were showing hard drives. And you can see that the latency was all over the board for hard drives, but it was very consistent and very low for the actual PCIe flash. With 3 times less thermal, improved reliability because you had no moving parts, and significantly improved the response time of the users themselves when they were accessing storage. So in this case, the solution is the Nitro Warp Drive, built with the same industry standard SAS drivers as the LSI SAS and RAID controllers that you are all probably familiar with. Very low latency. Inbox drivers for VMware, Windows, Hyper-V, and Linux. Bootable. And because of the fact that all the management is done on the card, it relieves and releases a lot of the memory that other solutions use for running drivers to be used for improving your density of your VMs and VDI sessions, because that memory is freed up to run the applications, not run the card. And it's also designed to be stable over the life of the card. As the memory and flash ages, it takes a lot more maintenance sometimes to read it. In this case, since we are doing it natively in the card, we're not burdening the CPU or main memory to do that. And the great thing is it is seamless, plug and play, and transparent acceleration for most virtualized servers and VDI servers. Drivers are part of the solution. So for the next thing we want to talk about here is we wanted to utilize and look at, well, what if I do want to use spinning disk storage? How do I see how flash could accelerate that performance when it's not used so much as primary storage, but used as an intelligent cache? In this case, we took a number of servers with drives and compared that to that same server with Nitro Mega RAID with intelligent acceleration, using similar login VSI benchmarks, golden image, and then creating a bunch of VDI desktops that you might use in a customer service organization. In this case, we were able to do a lot of exciting things. We were able to reduce boot times by more than 60% when you're booting all of those desktops, which basically helps employees to start more quickly and be more efficient. And when you do have changes, let's say like Patch Tuesday, they can be rolled out a lot faster and you're up and running. When you actually create the sessions, we're able to, meaning that so you've already booted the systems, but the people are logged in, they're able to do it twice as fast. So the impact of the server is significantly reduced when you're accessing data through utilizing flash as an intelligent cache. And finally, because you can do that, you can actually add more users or more VDI sessions to the same server, increasing the density, reducing the total cost of ownership and the cost per VDI session, because you're able to still add these users and boot and get the response time that you had traditionally with just the hard drive. So in this case, we were able to increase the density by 42%. It improves the overall VDI value proposition and makes it more attractive to more customers. We also want to look at, beyond pure just performance, we wanted to look at, well, what does that mean in the way of cost per sessions? I sort of talked about it, but in dollars and cents, when you're using the hard drive only solution, it was about $116 per VDI session, but because of the increased density and performance, we're able to get that down to $77, which is a 33% drop in cost. And the only big difference between the two is that we have the intelligent caching here utilizing flash. And you can see off the left, you can see all of the pieces of data on the solutions comparing them. So in this case, the solution was Nitro Mega RAID. Transparent application file system acceleration. The neat thing about this technology is that although it does have intelligent caching on it, it doesn't require the user to do anything other than install it. It still connects and looks like a RAID-controlled storage, so you have all the full data protection. But you have the fact that we transparently accelerate hot data in the back end and moving the hot reads and writes to flash. And you're able to get that without actually having to do any kind of additional tweaking, adjusting, or even making the application aware of what's going on, and it doesn't require you to update your OS or your application to get that advantage. And some of the other neat things about it is that if you do have a drive failure, for example, we're able to show that the performance is 10 times faster than if you had it just in a regular RAID array, because the degraded performance is not is bad. And when you do the rebuild, we're able to show you get a 4x improvement in rebuild performance in this environment, because we're able to offload a lot of the traffic that would be going to the drives and interrupt the rebuild process, because that data would be found on flash. I also wanted to show you some other deployments out there that are done by partners where they utilize Flash in their solutions to accelerate VDI performance. A lot of these can be seen or talked about. We'll see them next door in the AIS showcase. So the first one is Outware. Outware is a company in the Far East that is building a virtual desktop server appliance. It utilizes Nitro Mega RAID, and it uses it to offer improved performance in virtual environments. Another one is Tangent. They have a thing called the Vertex Virtual Desktop Appliance. It's basically sort of a mini supercomputer, as they like to call it, that helps simplify VDI deployment and performance. And as you can see, their VP of Engineering has said some nice things about our products. So to review, virtualization and VDI produce a natural hot or shared data environment that can be accelerated through intelligent caching solutions. Data that is commonly accessed by desktop users, shared executables, golden images, documents, etc., can be placed in low latency, high performing flash to improve performance. PCI flash storage solutions like the LSI Warp Drive card can deliver breakthrough virtual desktop scalability and performance for things like VMware's Horizon View deployments, while reducing power and cooling requirements over a SAN solution. Intelligent caching solutions like the LSI Nitro Mega RAID card can improve the value proposition for virtual desktop environments. They help you preserve the investment you have in hard drive storage and that capacity. They help reduce the response time for users. They allow you to increase the density of the number of VDI solutions hosted on a physical server, thereby improving the return on investment and reducing the total cost of ownership, and help alleviate things like boot storms and login storms. Overall, flash storage can provide a better experience for VDI administrators and end users, improving economics and response time and just the whole user experience. To learn more, I encourage you to go next door to visit the booths that we have, where we'll be showing a lot of these things, including VDI acceleration, Oracle, and big data acceleration, and some exciting new things involving some very low latency storage and some high availability and clustered solutions. Thanks again for your time.